So I spent about 20 years of my life in India. I was born in India, I was raised up in India. I did my undergrad in India. I moved to US as soon as I got my undergrad education in chemical engineering. India, I was born in Andhra Pradesh. I was there for maybe until I was doing my kindergarten, and then we moved to Kerala, and I was in Kerala. I mean, my parents have bought a house in Kerala, so right now I could say I'm native to Kerala and not to Andhra Pradesh.
While you were living there, did you ever experience any issues concerned with your water?
So in Kerala, no. Growing up, I don't think I ever felt the issue with water, but that was because we're in Kerala. The rains first hit in Kerala, and then they move upward. But where I was born, I was born in Andhra Pradesh. My parents were brought up in Andhra Pradesh, and I hear them talk about how, at least my mom, water would come at 2 a.m. So 2 a.m. it was dark, and she had to go and stand in line and fill water. It's amazing that there were people actually forming a line at 2 a.m. in the morning or the night.
These are for water trucks?
Yeah, this was not water trucks. It was a tap that would only deliver water at 2 a.m. And things started getting better once. So within Andhra Pradesh, my dad moved from a place called Ongole to Hyderabad. Hyderabad is more of a city, and we were living in a complex that was provided. The housing was provided by the company my dad was working for. My dad worked for a company that made cement-based sheets. He was a mechanical engineer, and the complex, it was better. I remember I was very young, but I remember we played Holi. Holi is a festival of colors in India, and I remember that my mom had spent a lot of time. My parents had spent a lot of time trying to wash off colors. So there must have been a lot of water around, right? Or enough water around to at least try to wash the colors off. And I don't think there were people really waiting for the line to fill their buckets.
Did you ever have experiences like in the slums and like how they had to deal with their water?
Once every summer, till I went to 10th grade, we would go visit my grandparents. My grandparents lived in a place called Nellore, and again, this was not an urban place. My grandparents were, at least on my mom's side, were very well-to-do, well off at least. My grandfather was a doctor, and my grandma worked for the government. So they were not. It was not tough for them. They didn't have to personally stand in queues, but we didn't have. At least I remember there was a time we had to finish off. We had to take our baths before it was 10 a.m. Not because. Well, it was also religiously important, I guess, for my grandparents that we woke up early and finished our morning things to do, as in brushing your teeth and taking a bath. But also after 10 a.m. we didn't have water. I know it was a big deal after my 8th grade when we had our own pump and we had a water tank above our house. But before then, they had servants, but they had to stand in line and fetch water for us. There was one tap for. So when I talk about a tap, I'm talking about running water. I'm not talking about water with assisted using a motor or whatever, right? So running water that came from the government only came till 9 a.m. in the morning and started again at 5 p.m.
So another major issue with the water in India is the water quality, and one of the major causes is the poor sanitation. There's a lack of toilets in a lot of the slums. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, again, infrastructure, right? There's infrastructure on. It's getting better. There it's actually easier. It's a much easier fix than the water itself, I think. But in general, it's a much easier fix than actually bringing in fresh water, right? Because here you're trying to eliminate waste, and usually, even with industries, if they follow all the regulations, it's not that hard. At least biological waste are not that hard to be taken care of. I think there it's just a lack of There it's a clear lack of education, clear lack of knowledge. I mean, when you have an abundant water source, like let's say a river, you can't be washing yourself and using the same water. You know, you'll be collecting water that's 2 feet away from someone taking a bath. You know, and people should just be educated that that is probably not good for you, right? And
do they have any other options?
There are. I mean, they could probably, if they're collecting water from there anyway, why don't you collect and take the bath somewhere else, right? As opposed to, it's a matter of, I mean, for them it's a matter of convenience, but then they forget that by doing that they're polluting the source of water.
Researchers in microfluidics, where we developed a miniature platform for the various biomedical applications. And one of the area we are focusing on is the water monitoring. So we are looking at the devices to detect the arsenic level and also the bacterial pathogen level in the water. And as an effort to do this, we had an immersion trip to India last year with some faculty from School of Engineering and the Center for Science, Technology and Society, and we visited the company called eHealthPoint, and where they provide healthcare solutions combined with the water solution as well. So here what they did is, so they do two things. So first they have the telemedicine, so it's like a Skyping with your doctor in the city while you're in the rural area. So they connect the patient from the rural area with the doctors there, and they also have the pharmacy next to it that provides the prescription for whatever medicine you need. But also, in order to financially support this clinic, they sell water. So they have the reverse osmosis filtering system where you can buy the water very affordably, and then that will also fund the clinics there as well. So that's the center I visited there, and one of the very important issues they mentioned there, and also they had a really good practice there, was to actually do the last mile distribution. So what I mean by this, so many aids, foreign aids in the healthcare or diagnostic tools, the reason they fail is that they don't do that last mile distribution part, which means that you need to really understand the culture there, and also you need to be adapted in the society. So in this case, in this company, they did an excellent job on that point, where all the leaders in the company really knows the community and really accepts the culture and understand the culture, so they know how to educate the people, right? So first they need to convince them, you need to drink this clean water, right? Which by just looking at it, you might not be able to tell, but inside, if you have bacterial or arsenic contents, that'll make you sick. So that's the big part where you need to educate the people properly, and they really did a good job on that.
I mean, the model is great because it's better than standing in line for water at the taps or carrying water for several miles. I'm hoping this is all set up in the rural areas and not in the urban areas, right? But I guess my main concern is water should not be distributed for a fee, right? I guess the fee here is just for the maintenance, but that should be somehow absorbed by the government. At this point, I think as a whole, the economy is making enough money that things like that can be absorbed. But in India, if you want to solve a problem, you have to go through the political bureaucracy, and it's not easy. I think some of these problems, we need time to solve it, because over the past decade, the general economy in India has been on the rise. But it's all many of our hopes that now that the economy starts rising, they start feeling the need more than before on the basic human needs and how they need to improve that. And not everything can be imported, or you cannot rely on importing just the basic supplies, and you need to be self-sufficient, and that might do it.